Now the secret to any plywood project is good quality plywood. Here I used maple. I trimmed it down to rough size using my circular saw. Then I cleaned up the edges on my table saw and miter saw. Once I had all the pieces cut, I labeled them and started sanding. Sanding's crucial to ensure a smooth finish. Then I built 2 identical towers, one for each end of the desk, and for that I just assembled using wood glue and brad nails. Once the towers were assembled, I used maple strips to cover the exposed edges of the plywood, and I plugged all the nail holes, sanded, cleaned it all up, got it ready for painting. I've never used spray paint to finish any sort of cabinetry, but in the end it actually turned out awesome after several light coats instead of going heavy to avoid the drip. Now to support the final desk top, I went with 3 runners stretched between the 2 towers, and I assembled that using pocket holes with a little help. The top is also one solid sheet of maple plywood, so I cut that, sanded it, and laid it on top to do a dry fit. Once the towers and desktop were in place, I once again used maple strips to cover the exposed edges of the maple plywood top. I glued those into place and used brad nails to support them, sanded it, plugged all the nail holes once again, and got it ready for staining and finishing. Speaking of stains, I put together several swatches, gave the wifey plenty of choices, and in the end she ended up choosing flagstone from Varathane. I love this decision because this stain, it's kind of like a light brown with a hint of gray, matches our floors perfectly, not too dark and definitely not too light. Perfect place to stand. Now I wanted a real durable finish on the maple plywood top, so I went with this wipe-on poly. Now this part's totally optional, but I built this center shelving piece the same way I built the towers, just to separate the desk into 2. Then I accessorized it a little bit, put up some things for the kids to use, and there you go. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Ciao!